Alright, quick update on AMP. This isn't something that I've covered in a very long period of time, but I do just want to check out how this is doing against both its USD and BTC pair. This is a cryptocurrency that's been absolutely slaughtered, so I wanted to provide some unbiased analysis. Perhaps there's some people that's still holding it, and potentially when you look at this video you might think slightly different. So let's jump right in. Let's microdose how AMP is doing against both its USD pair and against its Bitcoin pair. Let's jump right into the video. So starting off, you can see AMP on Binance specifically is basically getting slaughtered at this moment in time. It does seem like, unfortunately, we just keep on making lower lows and lower highs, at least within this channel. I think this channel is pretty well defined. I mean, maybe we can move it down, have it look a little bit cleaner. Something like this is definitely valid, but we've really been moving down super slow, super boring, and very uneuphoric. It seems like the market cap on this, on the US dollar, is bleeding out very harshly. Let's talk about what is going on with the momentum indicators and the moving averages. So as you can see, quite recently we have had a little bit of a loss of momentum over on the squeeze one. When you see this turn from light red to dark red, this is indicative that the bears are losing control. But what I've actually noticed is every single time you see that the bears start to lose control, it's simply, at least on the daily time frame, because they definitely have not lost control of this on the higher time frames like the weekly. But if you look at this, every time we see a lack of momentum of the bears stepping into the market, every time we've just seen these bunny hills back into these moving averages. And what's happened every single time we've formed one of these bunny hills? Well, after this bunny hill, we came down, we made a new low. After this bunny hill, we came down and we made a low, but it was still a higher low. This, bear in mind, was a very euphoric move back to the downside. After this bunny hill, at least in terms of the tops of these bunny hills, they're getting lower and lower each time, so that is something to take note of. But after each of these bunny hills, we basically have another move back to the downside. This one was another very euphoric one, all the way back down to the bottom. But I did just want to point out, while we are seeing a lack of momentum of the bears in this market at this moment in time, you can already see we're rounding down, we're losing momentum, and it does seem like something like this is probably going to happen, just like it happened here, just like it happened here, and just like it happened here, where we really don't have bulls step back in. They step in for a week or so, they try and reclaim higher price targets, and every single time they get thwarted. It seems like lower highs and lower lows are all this chart knows at this moment in time. So unfortunately, it does look like we are breaking down. Let's look at some of our most recent micro impulses and see how well they were respected. You can actually see 1.618 perfect bounce, 2.618 capitulated, back tested, and we capitulated down to the 3.6. So these micro impulses on the Fibonacci's are definitely very well respected. 1.618, you can see we held support. 3.618, as always, we came down to 2.618 rejection, as we've already capitulated below the 3.6. I think this would mean we'd be coming down to the 4.236 on our next rundown. This could look something like this, maybe another bunny hill back up to this before we capitulate down to the 4.6. From where we are at this moment in time, I would be thinking that we have at least another 43% move back down to the downside, where we're probably going to roll all the way down to the 4.236. You could actually see, if we do kind of capitulate something like this back to the bottom of the trend, it would definitely make sense that we could move down like another 50%. But like I said, anywhere between 43 and 50% is really where I see AMP going against the US dollar. I'm not here to provide hopium. I'm not here to kind of, you know, pretend that every crypto and every altcoin is going to be bullish 24/7. I say it how it is. I'm a straight shooter. If the chart looks garbage, then I have to say it how it is. And, you know, this might have good fundamentals, but the chart the chart is exceptionally bearish. So, you know, if you've been holding this for the past couple of months or so, you've really been getting wrecked against the US dollar. Even if we don't take it up to the all-time high and we just take it up to this local high, you can see it's down 85%. We're clearly in a nasty downtrend until we break up solidly to the upside of both these EMA ribbons and this descending wedge, this falling wedge, descending wedge, whatever you want to call it, descending channel. Until we break out of the upside of this, it clearly doesn't seem like we want to break bullish for AMP. Looking at AMP versus BTC, and I'm going to wrap up this video here, making this fairly quick, but once again, it's very textbook. Just drawing a line of best fit, you can clearly see we are getting slaughtered against the BTC pair. Now, since this listed over on Binance, you can see we're currently down, you know, 70.5% since the top. So it's very evident, in my opinion, that, you know, if you're buying altcoins, that is completely fine. I understand you buy altcoins, you want a higher return, which means you're obviously risking more, you're willing to risk more, and you're hoping to get a greater return. But it only makes sense, in my opinion, to buy altcoins that are outperforming Bitcoin, because if you're holding Bitcoin, you're going to get good gains slowly over time, and it's very safe. So that's one of the key reasons to hold Bitcoin, because it's safe and you know it's going to be around in 10 years. If you're buying an altcoin, you're taking on tons of extra risk, and that is fine if your altcoin is outperforming Bitcoin. But if your altcoin is underperforming against Bitcoin, then you're basically throwing your money down the toilet, flushing the chain, and taking on tons of extra risk. Like, make it make sense. Why would you invest in something that's 100 times more risky than Bitcoin when it's not even outperforming Bitcoin? If you were to invest in AMP versus Bitcoin, because I understand this chart may not look the same forever, we might have a time where we do finally break out bullish, and that's fine. If you want to buy once we've had a confirmed reversal, then that makes a lot of sense. But while looking at this chart, I mean, it's very black and white. We're clearly getting slaughtered against this trend line. We're getting slaughtered against Bitcoin. So in my opinion, it doesn't make any sense to hold AMP when you could just be holding Bitcoin. If you held Bitcoin instead of AMP since November, you would have been getting a 70% discount if you did want to pick up AMP once again. So I'm of the opinion, just very quickly, I'm of the opinion Bitcoin is about to capitulate to 22,000 down to the 200-week moving average. I think that is where the bear market bottom is going to be. It's very clear. Bitcoin is getting slaughtered. The RSI is in a bear market. Volume's exponentially increasing. And you look at the Bitcoin dominance. The Bitcoin dominance is rising. This means while the Bitcoin dominance is going up, Bitcoin is outperforming altcoins. So why does it make sense to hold altcoins when we're looking at all these warning signs that Bitcoin is about to massively outperform altcoins, and Bitcoin's already been massively outperforming AMP? So just a little bit of just picking my brain here, just going through a few charts, but it does seem like AMP, at least in the short term, is not a good hold, especially against well, I mean, especially against the US dollar, but especially against Bitcoin. I mean, we're getting slaughtered against both Bitcoin and the US dollar right now, and that's while Bitcoin's getting beat by the US dollar as well. So like I said, my trading plan at this moment in time, I think Bitcoin's going to outperform the altcoins. That's very much clearly the case with AMP versus BTC. It might not be the case forever. I'm not saying AMP is going to be in a bear market for the rest of its life. I'm not saying AMP is just going to keep going down against Bitcoin, keep going down against the US dollar. At some point, I acknowledge it may have a bounce, but at this moment in time, we're not seeing any bullish signs. The only bullish sign I can actually see is we're seeing bullish divergence here, where you can see the price is actually going down, but your oscillator, being the money flow indicator, is going up. I would not take that to the bank. Looking at all these charts, if I was to get an AMP, which I personally don't want to, I would be waiting for a breakout of the BTC pair, because otherwise, what is the point in holding an altcoin that does not outperform Bitcoin? You're taking on tons of risk and you're basically just losing money. You might as well just hold Bitcoin if Bitcoin's outperforming it. So that's all I've got for AMP. Hope you found some value in this content. As always, cowboy out, not financial advice. Peace.